A scream tore through the comms, slicing the silence of space. Michael said, "Stay with me. Don't cut out now." The channel crackled, then collapsed into static. Sarah whispered, "I can't breathe," before her voice was ripped away by the void. The control room on Earth responded, cold and clipped. Mission status. No names, no comfort, just sterile words. James gritted his teeth. "We're losing her." He pounded the console, but system stayed unresponsive. A red light blinked like a heartbeat dying. Outside, the stars burned indifferent, their beauty merciless. Michael's visor fogged as his breath came ragged, fear and guilt pulling tight around his chest. Sarah's tether spun into the darkness, her silhouette drifting farther from the vessel, her last gasp still echoing in his ears. Earth's command repeated, "Report." Michael shouted, "We're not machines, damn it," but silence followed. A secret flickered between breaths. The mission wasn't what they were told. Sarah said once in a whisper, "They lied to us." And then, she was gone. Michael pressed against the glass, his voice shaking. Sarah respond, but only static hissed back. James muttered, "She's gone too far." Michael's chest heaved as he fought the weightless silence pressing in. Earth command's tone cut sharply, "Report malfunction." James turned, veins bulging in his temple. "This isn't a malfunction, it's a life." Michael's fists clenched, his nails digging into his gloves. He remembered Sarah's whisper days earlier. They lied about the mission. The thought chilled him more than the vacuum outside. Sarah's figure drifted smaller, just a shadow now, swallowed by the stars. James slammed a fist against the console, his voice trembling. "We should have never trusted them." Michael's reply cracked with anger, "We had no choice." The silence between words grew heavier than space itself. James stared at Michael, his voice low, "We've lost control." Michael's gaze stayed fixed on the stars, refusing to blink. Earth command's clipped tone replied, "Proceed with protocol." Michael spat, "Protocol won't save her." James rubbed his temples, sweat glistening, his body shaking in the cold cabin. The blinking red light pulsed like a metronome counting down their doom. Michael whispered, "We should have stopped this mission when Sarah warned us." James shook his head, "We ignored the signs." Silence answered them, heavier than words. Outside, Sarah's outline had almost vanished, leaving emptiness behind. Michael closed his eyes, every breath sounding like a confession. Agent Harris's voice pierced through the channel, "Mission must continue." Michael shouted, "A life is gone, and you talk of mission." James slammed his fist again, sparks leaping from failing panels. The ship groaned, metal straining in the void. Michael turned on the comms, his voice sharp, "You hid something from us." Silence lingered, deliberate, before Harris replied coldly, "Focus on survival." Michael's eyes narrowed, fury mixing with dread. James whispered, "He knows." The hum of failing systems became the only soundtrack, punctuated by the blinking red light. Michael's chest ached with guilt and rage, knowing Sarah's last whisper had been the truth. Michael's hands trembled over the console. "She trusted us." James replied bitterly, "And we let her drift." Michael closed his eyes, Sarah's last whisper echoing, "They lied." Earth's voice pressed again, "Proceed with mission." Michael's jaw tightened, his voice breaking, "We are not your pawns." The hum of failing systems grew louder, shadows dancing on the walls. Outside, the vast cosmos swallowed Sarah completely. Michael whispered, "I will not forgive this." James nodded slowly, the silence heavier than any gravity. Together they felt the weight of betrayal settle deeper than space itself. Michael sat in silence, his heart beat louder than the hum of failing systems. He whispered, "Sarah deserved more than silence." James stared at him, his voice rough, "She warned us." Michael pressed his forehead against the cold console, memories flooding. Sarah's laughter once echoed in the training bay, now replaced by her fading cry. Earth's voice returned, "Maintain composure." Michael gritted his teeth, "Composure? We just watched her vanish. James rubbed his hands together, trembling. She always knew something was wrong. The silence wrapped around them, not comforting but suffocating. Michael felt the tether to earth snapping inside him, and only her memory remained as his anchor. James broke the silence first, his voice shaking. She carried that secret, Michael. Michael didn't look up, replying. She tried to warn us. He clenched his fists, the memory of her whisper replaying. They lied. Earth Command cut in, tone sharp. You will not deviate from mission. Michael snapped. We've already deviated, we've lost her. The cabin lights flickered, shadows creeping along the walls. James muttered bitterly. Maybe that's why she fought harder than us. Michael turned, eyes blazing, because she knew the truth. For the first time, the cold indifference of the mission bled into raw betrayal, and the grief turned into rage. Michael's voice dropped to a whisper. I left everything behind for this mission. His mind drifted to Emily, his wife, her recorded voice once promising, come home safe. That message replayed now, haunting, as if mocking him. James looked at him, sorrow softening. You still have her. Michael shook his head slowly. She deserves more than a broken man who watched his crew die. Earth Command repeated. Stay on course. He slammed the console, his voice breaking. Stay on course? We're bleeding souls, not numbers. The cabin seemed to close in, and the tether to Earth felt more like a chain. James finally broke, his voice trembling. I joined this mission because I wanted to matter. Michael turned sharply. We all did. James' shoulders shook, the weight of years of doubt surfacing. He said, I've always been second best, Michael. She believed in me. Michael's tone softened. She believed in us both. Earth Command pressed again. Focus. Adjust trajectory. Michael growled. You don't see us as people. James wiped sweat from his forehead, whispering, She made me feel like I wasn't a ghost. Michael lowered his gaze, the grief morphing into shared humanity, the bond of survival strengthening between them. Michael whispered, We are more than their mission. James nodded slowly, the weight of Sarah's loss pressing down like gravity. Earth's voice repeated, sterile. Proceed. Michael raised his head, voice steady but sharp. We will not be silent pawns. James's lips tightened into a bitter smile. Then they'll see we're still human. The hum of failing systems filled the void, but for a fleeting second, humanity returned to the cabin. Michael thought of Emily, her laughter, her hope, and knew she was his tether, his reason to keep breathing in this void. The silence shifted, no longer just despair, but defiance. The silence fractured as the ship's systems flickered again. Michael muttered, We're losing more than power. James rubbed his forehead. We're losing control. Sparks danced across the console, filling the cabin with acrid smoke. Earth Command's voice snapped, Stay on course. Michael clenched his jaw, shouting, Your course is killing us. James slammed his fist down, sparks spraying his arm. He hissed, This is sabotage. Michael froze, the word cutting deeper than the alarms. He whispered, Someone wanted us to fail. The shadows of betrayal thickened in the red glow, and the cabin felt smaller than ever. James whispered, Sabotage means someone on board. Michael turned sharply, eyes narrowing. The cabin lights flickered again, throwing shadows that seemed alive. Earth Command cut in coldly. Cease speculation. Michael's voice cracked. You already knew. James looked at him, fear mixing with fury. She knew too. Michael's chest tightened, remembering Sarah's warning. He spat. She tried to tell us, and now she's gone. The silence between them grew heavy, more dangerous than the void outside. Trust, once their lifeline, now twisted into suspicion, as though betrayal sat among them unseen. Michael whispered, We were lied to from the beginning. James' voice trembled. But by who? The agency? Or someone here? Michael's pulse hammered in his temples, his thoughts racing. Earth Command ordered, Focus on survival. Michael snarled. Survival depends on truth. James leaned closer, voice cracking. If Sarah knew, she wasn't just scared, she was silenced. The word rang like a gunshot. Michael's breath grew ragged, the betrayal sinking deeper. The mission was no longer about space, but about secrets thick as the void itself. Michael pounded the comms panel. "You sent us here to die." Earth Command's voice came calm and flat. "Mission parameters remain unchanged." James barked, "Listen to yourself, people are dead." Michael's voice broke into a whisper. "Sarah knew." James stared at him, sweat dripping. "What if one of us is part of it?" The accusation hung heavy. Michael's eyes darted, suspicion like a knife between them. The cabin, already shrinking, now felt suffocating with mistrust. Betrayal wasn't just a shadow. It had a face, and they didn't know whose. James whispered, "We can't trust them, and maybe we can't trust each other." Michael's eyes burned. "Then trust is dead, and so are we." The alarms fell silent, replaced by the hum of failing life support. Earth Command pressed. "Mission continues." Michael's chest heaved, his reply shaking. "The mission is betrayal itself." James' jaw clenched, his silence an answer as heavy as words. For the first time, fear wasn't of space, it was of the man standing beside him. The cabin dimmed to near darkness as emergency lights sputtered. Michael whispered, "They sent us here to die." James' voice shook, or to hide something. The console flickered, revealing encrypted files buried deep in the system. Michael's hands trembled as he forced access. Lines of hidden data scrolled fast, revealing a second objective: recover an anomaly not disclosed in mission briefings. James muttered, "Sarah knew." Michael's eyes burned with fury. They erased the truth. Earth Command broke through, their tone colder than before. "You were never meant to know this." Betrayal was no longer suspicion. It was fact. Michael stared at the scrolling text, his heart racing. "They knew we wouldn't come back," he whispered. James shook his head, denial cracking. "We were expendable." Earth Command's sterile tone continued. "Mission parameters are classified." Michael slammed the console, sparks leaping. "You used Sarah's life." James shouted, voice breaking, "We trusted you." Silence answered them, thick as smoke. Michael's breathing quickened, rage mixing with fear. This mission was never exploration, it was extraction. The void outside pressed closer, its silence now the echo of the agency's lies. James' voice trembled. "What if one of us knew?" Michael froze, his eyes narrowing. Sarah hinted at betrayal before she drifted. The cabin's silence grew sharp, every sound amplified. Michael whispered, "What if she wasn't the only one?" James stared at him, fear mixing with accusation. "You think one of us is working for them?" Michael's chest tightened, his trust collapsing. The void wasn't their only enemy now. Suspicion had entered their blood. The agency's betrayal had planted a poison seed between them. The comms flared again, Agent Harris's voice chillingly calm. "The anomaly must be secured at all costs." Michael's voice cracked with fury. "At the cost of Sarah's life." Harris replied, "Collateral damage is necessary." James covered his face with shaking hands, whispering, "We were never a crew. We were pawns." Michael shouted, "You lied to us, you condemned us." Harris's silence lingered, heavier than his words. Then he added, "You'll either serve the mission or join her in the void." The betrayal stabbed deeper than the emptiness outside. Michael leaned back, his voice hollow. "They lied from the start." James' face twisted with anguish. "We're not explorers, we're expendable tools." The console hummed with hidden data, mocking them. Outside the stars looked sharper, crueler, as though the universe itself bore witness. Earth Command's voice cut in again. "Stay on objective." Michael whispered, his tone dark. "The objective is betrayal itself." The silence that followed was not empty. It was the weight of truth revealed, crushing, undeniable, and inescapable. The cabin groaned as if the ship itself carried their grief. Michael whispered, "We are pawns in that game." James' voice cracked, "Then we break the board." A sudden shudder ripped through the vessel, alarms screaming. Earth Command ordered, secure anomaly coordinates. Michael's fury erupted. You killed her for this. Sparks rained down, panels bursting under pressure. James grabbed Michael's arm, shouting, "If we don't act now, we die here." Michael's chest heaved, rage, grief, and fear colliding. His voice dropped to a whisper, "Then we fight them, even if it kills us." The void outside pressed closer, endless and merciless. James pulled himself closer, sweat glistening. "We have to cut comms." Michael stared at him, stunned. "Without Earth we're blind." James shouted, "With Earth, we're already dead." The ship jolted violently, throwing them against the walls. Michael gasped, gripping the railing. "They'll hunt us if we break." James' face hardened. Better hunted than slaughtered. Michael's eyes burned as he slammed the override. Static filled the cabin, Earth Command silenced. For the first time, the oppressive voice was gone, leaving only the sound of their own breathing and the crushing truth of isolation. The silence after comms cut felt like a wound. Michael whispered, "We're alone." James exhaled heavily. Finally. But the relief was short. Warning lights blazed brighter, oxygen dropping. Michael's voice trembled, systems failing faster now. James muttered, "They sabotaged us long before launch." Michael slammed the console. Sarah tried to stop this. The cabin's air felt thinner, each breath burning their lungs. James' voice dropped, "We have hours at most." Michael met his gaze, the fire in his eyes unyielding. "Then we spend them fighting for the truth." James staggered to his feet, voice raw. "If they wanted us silent, let's make noise." Michael smirked faintly despite the despair, louder than the void. Together they pulled wires, rerouting power toward the beacon. Sparks showered them, burning their gloves. Michael gritted his teeth. "We send the truth back home." James shouted over the chaos, "Even if it kills us." The ship shook violently as the beacon flared alive, light piercing the void. Michael whispered, "Sarah, this is for you." The truth was no longer buried, it was screaming into the stars. The beacon roared, flooding the void with desperate light. Michael shouted, "They'll know the truth now." James coughed through smoke, voice hoarse, "If it reaches Earth before we're ash." The hull groaned, metal tearing under strain. Oxygen alarms shrieked, pressure dropping fast. Michael closed his eyes, whispering, "Sarah, we did it." James stumbled beside him, nodding weakly. At least we weren't silent. Their final act was not survival, but rebellion. The climax burned with sacrifice. Souls against machines, truth against silence, a scream hurled into the eternal void. The beacon's glow dimmed as the ship's power drained further. Michael whispered, "We lit the fire, James." James coughed, clutching his chest, "But we may never see it burned." The oxygen gauge blinked dangerously low. Michael pressed his back against the cold wall, eyes distant. "Sarah didn't die for nothing." James closed his eyes, whispering, "Nor will we." Their voices trembled, but their defiance held strong. Outside, the cosmos shimmered indifferently, swallowing their cries yet carrying their truth. The cabin groaned, each sound like a farewell. Michael gazed out the viewport, stars gleaming like silent witnesses. "Emily will know I tried," he whispered. James rasped, "Maybe the beacon will reach her." Michael clenched his fists, jaw tight. His mind filled with memories of her laughter, her touch, the promises he left behind. "She deserves the truth, even if she never sees me again." James nodded weakly. "They all do." Their breaths came shallow, the cabin filled with quiet determination. Betrayal had stolen their future, but sacrifice carved a legacy into the void. James' voice cracked, "Do you think anyone will believe us?" Michael's reply was steady, "The truth doesn't need belief, it just exists." James tried to smile, but his lips trembled. "Sarah would be proud." Michael's throat tightened, she carried the warning, and we carried it further. The air grew thinner, their words breaking into gasps. "Even if we die here," Michael whispered, "our voices will echo." James's eyes closed slowly, a faint peace settling across his face. The betrayal had broken them, but it had not silenced them. Michael pulled Sarah's tether fragment from storage, holding the torn cord with trembling hands. "She's still with us," he whispered. James opened his eyes faintly, nodding. The tether glowed dim under emergency lights, a symbol of both loss and defiance. Michael's tears drifted weightless, shining like small stars in the cabin. "Her warning lives on in us," James whispered faintly, and through the beacon, the moments stretched eternal, their grief transforming into something unbreakable. The cabin groaned as systems failed further, but their hearts carried a strange calm. The ship drifted silently, systems nearly dead. Michael whispered, "We are ghosts already." James exhaled weakly, "Then let our ghosts speak louder than the agency." Michael placed the tether fragment gently on the console, a memorial in metal and silence. "They'll never erase us," he said. James gave the faintest smile, whispering, "Never." Their voices weakened, but their truth had already crossed the void. Betrayal had stolen their lives, but not their story. The beacon's faint pulse marked their legacy, beating against the silence of space. The ship drifted further into the dark, silent except for the faint heartbeat of the beacon pulsing in the void. Michael pressed his hand against the console and whispered, "Our voices will carry farther than our bodies ever could." James' breath rattled, shallow and uneven, as he whispered back, "Even if no one hears them, the truth has been released." The cabin had grown colder, shadows stretching long across the walls like the hands of time. Michael's eyes glistened, not from fear, but from defiance that refused to die. He touched the metal console softly, as though it were Sarah's hand, grounding him. "We left truth behind," he said firmly, his voice fragile but unbroken. James' lips curved faintly despite his weakness, whispering, "Then we did not fail." Outside, the stars burned indifferent, brilliant and merciless, their light piercing the black sea. Yet the beacon's pulse remained steady, a final heartbeat for those who had fallen, a message that betrayal could not silence. Their bodies were trapped in the cage of steel, but their defiance lived beyond its walls, carried by the stars. Michael leaned back, his chest rising with effort, the air thinning faster now. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Emily, I kept my promise." The words slipped into the silence like a final transmission, fragile but eternal. James turned his head slowly, eyes heavy, whispering with what little strength remained, "Tell her for me too." Michael nodded, though his tears betrayed him, drifting weightless across the cabin like small floating stars. On the console, the frayed tether fragment rested, glowing faintly under the dying light, a relic of Sarah's sacrifice and warning. Michael pressed his palm against it, whispering, "Sarah, your truth lives." The cabin shuddered with mechanical strain, systems collapsing one after another. The air grew thinner, each breath burning in their lungs, but defiance still held their voices steady. "They may erase us from their records," Michael whispered, "but not from the universe." The fading hum of the beacon was the only answer, but it was enough, for silence now meant immortality. The void pressed heavier against the hull, silence roaring louder than alarms ever had. Michael's voice was faint but steady, "We are echoes now." James coughed, his voice nearly gone, "Echoes live longer than men." Michael's eyes locked on the stars, countless and unfeeling, each one burning as witness to their rebellion. He whispered, "Every star carries our voices now." The beacon pulsed brighter, one last surge casting their faces in brilliance as though the cosmos itself recognized them for a moment. James' lips twitched with a faint smile as his eyes drifted close. Michael turned back toward the console, whispering, "They cannot erase us." The beacon dimmed into a steady rhythm, the soundless heartbeat of defiance. For a moment, the silence seemed alive, charged with the energy of their last stand. The betrayal had left scars deeper than wounds, but truth had been set free, its echo unending. Michael exhaled sharply, the sound fragile but determined, refusing to let the universe forget. Michael's strength ebbed away, but his voice whispered one last vow into the silence. "Emily, forgive me. But know that I loved you." His tone cracked as the words left him, fragile and human against the inhuman void. James was silent now, his chest unmoving, his face softened into peace that only death could bring. Michael reached over, resting his hand on James' shoulder, whispering, "We did not die in silence." The cabin filled with stillness, no alarms, no orders, just a calm that stretched infinite. Outside, the stars blazed merciless, indifferent to grief but eternal witnesses nonetheless. The beacon gave one final pulse, a flash against the black, and dimmed. Michael's eyes grew heavy, his chest struggling, breath fading. He closed his eyes slowly, surrendering not in defeat but in completion. Betrayal had stripped them of home, but legacy had given them immortality. The universe now carried their truth, carved into silence, written in light. The ship drifted endlessly through the abyss, no longer alive, but not forgotten. Its body was broken, but its heart still pulsed faintly with the echo of the beacon. Across the void a whisper traveled faster than silence itself, carrying betrayal, sacrifice and truth. Michael's final words lingered, "We are not silence." The message left the confines of steel and crossed into eternity, a cry etched into the endless canvas of stars. The beacon's glow throbbed faintly, like the last heartbeat of a ghost that refused to vanish. The stars listened, their cold brilliance shining back, eternal but indifferent. The agency's betrayal had claimed their bodies, but their story had transcended them. They had become more than astronauts, more than pawns. They had become voices in the cosmos. The void itself carried their legacy now, a scream hurled into eternity, an echo that would never fade. Their silence had been stolen, but their truth had been immortalized.